So, I had this big intro planned to say good evening to all of you. I was hoping to surprise you all with me in game about to walk around the corner and react to the Soulan, however that's pronounced, for the first time. And then CIG and Star Citizen did me dirty. Good evening, guys. Hope you're all well. Lots of stuff happening in chat already. Drop Jogger, Notorious, good evening. Matthew, Mount Stunner, Calico, and Shinobi, and Edison, good evening all. We have a legend of the streaming community in with us this evening. We have Daily Noob with us. He is doing a monumental amount of streaming at the moment with IAE, out there helping newbies in the verse. A little bit of making a ridiculous amount of money as well. And also a much, much better low flyer than I am, although that's not saying much. So I'm going to drop a link to his Twitch in the chat, so do make sure you go and check him out. Absolute legend. And he often kind of comes into chat as well, so you know, if you see us in there talking, then you know, come in and have a chat. But lots of great gameplay, really good discussion, and the good news is he's probably, I think he'd admit himself, a bigger degenerate than I am, so that's really good news. Good to have you here, buddy, and good to see you. Hello Ray, hello AV, good to see you guys. I've got a bit of a mission, mate, to start off with. I'm not feeling great. I've just had an awesome weekend down with family. We went and saw what the Guinness Book of World Records has called the greatest living explorer, Sir Ranulph Fiennes. We saw him give a talk about some of his expeditions and his early life and how he got into exploring down in Plymouth. Incredible to be in the room with an absolute legend. Guy is double hard. He got kicked out of the SAS. That's how mental he is, for doing crazy things. Absolutely incredible. However, not feeling particularly well coming back. I've been tired since getting back, and in the last couple of hours, a sore throat has begun to develop. So if I do bang out early to go to bed, please excuse me, but I will try and get through as much of the stream this evening as I can manage, unless I start losing my voice, in which case it's going to be more traumatic for you than I think it will be for me. Noob says, 100% much more of a degenerate than you. Yeah, I mean, I've been sat in that stream kind of freaked out a couple times. Stunner says, did you soil in your pants off screen again, badges? I don't want to talk about it. I might have found myself some new stockings and suspenders just for the stream. Victoria says, health come first, thanks mate. Appreciate the stream all the same. It just wouldn't be Sunday evening without it. Thank you, my friend. Cheers. In completely unrelated news, one of my favourite World War II maritime channels has just put up a video, which I will link in a little while. I'll go and have a look, about Silent Hunter 4. Put up some great work, so we will have a look at that in a little bit, but incredible stuff. Well worth having a look at. So, where are we at the minute? I have had... Badger's had a bridesmaid moment. Oh, what, the stockings and suspenders? No, this is like TV, and this is like an internet interview for me. Respectable top half, bottom half's a little bit saucy, but that's my sense of humour. So, if anyone guesses what I'm wearing below the waist, I will stand up on stream. You won't get it. Drop Yogi says, I'm tired and ready to just veg. Good, mate. Glad to have you with us, but, you know, you go and get some rest when you need it, my friend. Okay, so IAE 2953 has come out. I was really hoping to be walking around the corner into Soulan right now and having a look at this, from what I hear is a very impressive alien ship. Unfortunately, Star Citizen decided that it wouldn't find my install, regardless of what folders I pointed it to, and blah, 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 blah. and insisted on making me download the entire game, which I didn't have time for. So, not helpful. I was going to risk it. I know it doesn't always work out so well, but I was going to risk it for a biscuit. Not so much, unfortunately. Excuse me. But yes, so we shall see. We shall see. I'm going to kick you over to the other camera, and we shall have a look at what's come up in IAE, and then talk about a whole bunch of other stuff that's happened. It's actually been quite a good week for news, so we'll have a look. Noob says, real gamers don't wear pants or underpants. I think it worries me about your stream, my friend. Calco says, the normal white boxes with pink hearts. No, sadly not. No, they're in the wash. Truck Rocket says, I interviewed like that the other day and didn't get the job. Oh, mate, did you stand up? Was that what? Kind of, they just clicked off. Sorry to hear that, buddy. Stunner says, does what you're wearing below screen have anything to do with pre-processed wool? No, Stunner, it doesn't. I wouldn't fly it myself, says Notorious, hopefully talking about the Soylent, rather than my underpants. But the Soylent is very impressive. Big Boba Fett Slave 1 style. The vertical takeoff. Yeah, I was really hoping to kind of sit in that cockpit and see how that feels. A lot of people saying that the takeoff is weird, that you press forward and you shoot up instead. But we'll have a go. Burn up undies. I'm going to regret, aren't I, starting this conversation? Oops. So I was going to kick off with some alcohol. I'd even picked some up special. I had picked up, for those that like it, I picked up some Tournament Mead, which is a honey wine. Very popular with Vikings, so I'm told. Unfortunately, with how I'm feeling at the moment, I'm just going to go for, I've got a box of goodies. I'm going to go for a good old Dr. Pepper, because oh yeah, that works. I'm going to go for a good old Dr. Pepper, because why not? But yeah, so that's where we are. Soylent is pretty nice. So who's had a look at the Soylent, and what are your thoughts? Give me a shout in chat. But whilst we're there, let's kick across. Oh good lord, I've disappeared. Well, that's not ideal, is it? Let's have a look, see if I can fix that. No. Yes. Oh. I've appeared. This is good. Bro stream. Yeah, peekaboo, exactly. Mead would actually do great for your throat, by the way. Yes, I realise, unfortunately. Yeah. Booze not in a can, says Avi, getting fancy. I am getting fancy. I was considering maybe a tankard or a drinking horn. Also, great merch ideas, I think. But yes, I may well go down that road. Lucrative. Good evening, buddy. Good to see you. Says, normally I'm a huge Alien fan, but I don't like the outside shape of this one. Interior is cool, though. Love the rock styling. Yes. I saw, obviously, as I'm sure most of us did, the Inside Star Citizen with the kind of images of the bed. Made me want to go and have a look at it, and I was really hoping that I was going to have a chance this evening, but Star Citizen doing Star Citizen things, and that was the end of that. But we're going to start all the way back at day one, just so I can have a go through. And I have to say, the one thing that stood out whilst I was looking at this down with family is that it's really quite incredible that this game package, as a starter ship, is as cheap as it is. It's only a couple of pound over the actual ship itself. Certainly here in the UK, I don't know how it kind of pans out with yourself, Noob, or over in the US, but I would imagine it's not much different, that it's not much more expensive than the ship itself. So for people who are thinking about getting started and looking at getting money, this seems to getting in with a game package that isn't just the base level. This seems to be pretty good. I mean, you're missing a couple of things. You don't have the vehicle space for one that you might get with, say, the cutter, which is also cheaper. But it is, you know, it's a very impressive looking ship. So yeah, not a bad place to be. Dropbocket says, I'm not going to be flying it frequently, but they did a magnificent job making it different. Yeah, absolutely, especially with the way it takes off. Avi says, it's a good looking ship, price is better than I expected. The flight is a little funny though, seems a fairly solid option. Yeah. Noob says, 6 SU of cargo, handles great, unique to fly and land, 12, is it 12 size 2? You're kidding. And 3 size 3, and the 2 size 1 shields make it a very nice ship. Holy moly, that's a lot of ordnance. Yeah, that's just yeeting missiles downrange, obviously. Good evening, Zenfella. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome to the stream. New Flyer's going to have a hell of a time landing. It's like, yeah, this is a starter ship. Now land upside down. Or facing the wrong way. Bless them. Yeah, well, you know, it's their fault. 3 size 3 hard points, he says. Gotcha. Shinobi says, my go-to for a sore throat is a hot toddy, tea, lemon, honey, whiskey, and is what you want, a little fancier. Add some cinnamon. Very nice. I do have whiskey. However, I'm very loath, as you guys found out on CitizenCon, very loath to drink it in great quantities because, yeah, it's a nice whiskey. It's Talisker. It's 18 years old, something like that. So it's not something I like downing or anything like that. Unless I know I'm going to be able to taste it and enjoy it. But yes, one of the interesting points that's come out, if people haven't spotted it yet, is obviously the CCUs. There's a daily CCU that's changing, and one thing I believe that's been confirmed, correct me if I'm wrong, is the ones that they'll do at the end are not always or not going to be the ones that they've done throughout the event. So different War Bond CCUs, different upgrade special CCUs later on. I was horrified and shocked and a little bit amazed to watch the javelins and the Idrises go as quickly as they did. That's a little bit incredibly terrifying. But yeah. Zimfella says, drinking during IAE is dangerous. Lots of impulse buys. Yes, which is a bonus for me not drinking. And apologies if I'm sounding nasally. I'm not. I'm you know, struggling a bit. I'm just gonna see if I can listen to myself for a while. But yes, not great. So this one, unfortunately, is the opening sound of a Dr. Pepper, and not anything more exciting than that. But you know, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Oh God, that was a Jared joke, wasn't it? Noob, it's time for me to retire. I'm out. I'm done. Pulling Jared jokes on stream. Apologies again because I'm not feeling well. I completely forgot to put the video up and give people warning. So if you're just joining, I've just made a load of noise about what I did over the weekend, and then we're starting to have a look at what is on the IAE program. So yesterday's we've had obviously all the POA stuff. I don't plan to go through all of this, other than to maybe highlight a couple of things that I quite like. I'm a fan of the Nox, and I love the styling on a lot of this stuff. They look incredible when you see them in the game. It's just, a POA's not really my thing. However, completely understand. Yeah. Kauke says, what's the worst that can happen? You sure you want to test the universe like that? Shit can get weird. You're not kidding, mate. You are not kidding. It's been a bit of a strange one. But yes. Including, how's this for weird? On Boxing Day here in the UK, the day after Christmas Day, in case it's a different type or different named holiday anywhere else in the world, we're going to be putting up spooky Halloween decorations. Don't ask, it's just a family thing, and that's what's been chosen. But yes, you're basically going to drive down my family's street and go, Christmas tree, Christmas tree, Christmas tree, bats. What? So yeah, that's going to be quite good fun. Drop Yogurt says, yes, drinking isn't advised if you're loose with your lips and your wallet during IAE. I mean, I'm loose with my lips and my wallet all the time. I resent the implication that I might not be. Banu, no big surprises here. Other than for Banu, I'm not a massive fan of the defender. It's just, it doesn't feel to be, for me, the same as the merchantman. And this thing looks incredible. I guess we just see what it's going to turn out as. Because they seem to be not maybe as clear on the concepts as they were initially, or we would initially believe. What was really interesting about this one was this thing, this bit at the bottom, which they've now created to be, I think, the entrance to the ship. They didn't know what it was initially from listening from them, so they were like, we don't know what to do with this really cool fin thing that we've got sticking out the bottom. Yeah, not great. And then Asperia, I'm not going to lie, there's a serious place in my heart for Asperia. Not so much for the Vandal stuff, although what's really cool is, of course, they've confirmed that shortly after Squadron 42 comes out, the updated models for the glaive and the scythe and the blade and everything else will be out. The Prowler. Massive fan of the Prowler, and I know that Lodo or Matthew in chat is also a big fan, just hoping that it gets the utility that it deserves. They do, Noob, they really, really do. Yeah, some great, the whole Asperia lineup I've got time for. The Talon, I had a Talon Shrike for an awful long time, until Can kind of beat me around the head and made my CCUs and my fleet make a little bit more sense than it did back then. So we're in a better place now. But yes, that was took some doing. But I really love them, and you know, depending on where they get replicated and stuff, I'm really hoping to get in there, and get them fairly early on in the game. For me, the Prowler it's very much a Black Hawk in the way it's going to come to rooftops. People are going to be able to step out the sides of them. You've got the deployable wings that sit on the side, that if you go into VTOL mode, the wings actually extend like that, and they act as cover for the people jumping out until the Prowler moves off again, and that's really, really cool. Notorious says, the Prowler's been done so dirty, I hope they sort it soon. Well, one of the interesting things is it's had recently a massive uplift in hit points, and the wings either have done or will do very shortly, so it's now really, really tanky. Yeah, Avi says, you just have to CCU to the Prowler for under $200, and then it's a solid ship. Yep, this ship is 100% a victim of the cool alien tax and the cool combat ship tax rolled into one, because when you think it's 10% more expensive than a Reclaimer, that's crazy. So yeah, definitely for me, an earning game. You guys might see it slightly differently. Yeah, so that's day one. Day two, Aegis. Not much to say here, really. I don't think we didn't get anything new. You know, their lineup is solid and has been that way for quite some time. It's just terrifying that they're that much money. It's awful. And then I think the one of the offers, the Warbond offers for the upgrade was the Sabre, one of my favourite combat ships. Yeah. And then the Redeemer, I think that's the price upgrade now, right? So that's the price upgrade has happened, or is it 335 it's going up to? I can't remember. Javelin costs so much, says our Winter Gaming. Yeah. You can buy a car for that. So yeah. I vote Badgerless gets a Javelin just for him to go nuts. That sounds like a really good Spectrum thread to start. Alternatively, if you really wanted to, we could start a drive. So I'm going to do a series where it talks about Fleet Command and how modern Navy tactics and the way they operate could be carried across to help people who are going to command capital ships. We could start something that says if I get enough referrals, I've got to put my money where my mouth is and take a Javelin out. But that's a lot of referrals. But I'm not buying it. So there. Alternatively, let's just get Algrid to give me one. Yes, he got a $5 bump. Yes, Avy. I couldn't remember what it was. 330 it was going to, or 335. But yes, yeah. So anyone here isn't an SC player and wants to get into it, use badges as a referral link, which funnily enough is in the description below. I should have a little button to put it up on the screen, but I don't because I'm just so disorganised at the minute. I vote we get CIG to do a donation drive to force Badger's ship becomes Star Kitty themed. Absolutely not. Get out. Yeah, and the Retaliators. Obviously, the Retaliator base that we're looking at the minute. This thing is going to get modularity. So instead of the torpedo bays of the Retaliator bomber, this thing's going to have cargo and question mark modules here. So really, really cool. And my sponsor, if he's still in chat, sorted me out with one of these. So that was very, very cool. But I love it. This, to me, is one of my favourite ships in the game, not just because at the moment I've got the bomber version and killing some really big ships, but also it's got that World War II B-52 bomber, very claustrophobic passageways, can see the ordnance, move around the ordnance. It's really cool. I want all my ships to be Star Kitty themes and noob. Yeah, there's the drive. Get noob ships, Star Kitty theme, not mine. Yeah. Matthew says Retaliator is also another sleeper ship, really, really strong. Yeah, I'm hoping it looks slightly different by the time that it's finished. There's bits of it that I don't like, and I'm not going to point it out with my mouse, mainly because you can't see my mouse. But the cockpit looks too small, the cheeks look too big, and the fact that it goes up and then down again, it's showing its age as a concept. It really does need to be updated, but it's a good looking ship, and really good experience. Retaliator bomber does all the big bada boom that we like with the clear sky torps. Yeah. And then the Sabre, one of my favourite ships out there. I've got to say, it's for combat. I know it's not the best. I know it gets outflown by light fighters right now, but I do really like it. Retaliator's current design looks like an RSI ship, though. They've got to do something with it for sure. Okay, so the Vanguards then. Again, solid choice for ships. I'm flying one around at the moment as a loaner for my Perseus, and I think it's the Ward. It's the Harbinger I'm flying around. Yeah, I quite enjoy it. It's got some space around. They've actually, I think, you know, the turrets get a bad rap on the top, but I don't think they're as bad as everyone makes out. I quite enjoy flying them around. And the Vanguard Sentinel, of all the Vanguards, if you were to ask me what my favourite would be, it would be that thing because it's an E-Warfare ship. It's an interdictor, so it's going to have an E-Warfare suite on board when that finally gets put in the game. It's going to make it really quite special. Yeah. And I think it leaves only one of my favourite ships, despite the fact it's not in and we don't know anything about what it does yet, other than these things here, which are rearmors, I would assume, or refuelers, or both, or repair drones, maybe all three, who knows. But the Vulcan is one of my stop-off points on one of my CCU chains at the minute, and when it gets in, I'm really looking forward to having a go with it and seeing where we land. Yeah, really, really like the idea of rearm, repair, refuel, and I think it's going to be underserviced. So if people are open to the idea and wondering where to get into, I think you might need a few players in this loop, so it might be worth looking at. Yeah. Good evening, fellas. Good to see you, buddy. Matthew says, I really hope the drones are automated so you don't have to manually control each drone. No, and that, I mean, I know this is concept art and you've got to take concept art with a little pinch of salt, but this seems to indicate that maybe you can. Maybe you just allocate them and off they go, sort of thing. Okie dokie. So that's yesterday. On to today. And here is obviously one of the ships that's on the the CitizenCon presentation, the 12 that we were going to get this year, and a very interesting choice for the Nova AA, which I love the burst fire. It's almost reminiscent of a Katushka or something like that, where it's firing lots of missiles. This thing now, there you go, just streams of missiles and stuff. That's really, really cool. I like that quite a bit. In there as well, that's C1. That's the one that I'm talking about that's in CitizenCon with the RSA kind of shaped nose. 80 missiles, I believe, says Matthew. Yeah, it's something ridiculously big. Very close to CCUing to a C1, says Zimfella. I have no size 2 ship in my fleet. Interesting. Very cool. Would you go C1 or would you go Zeus CL? What would you? What would be your ideal choice there, Zim? Matthew says, top tip for everyone who plays a CCU game: the Drake Scout is still on War Bond discount with LTI. Interesting. Matthew says his preference between the two, the C1 and the Zeus CL, would be a C1. Yep, I get that. Of course, one of the interesting things that happened when they brought the Zeus out was the Zeus's components were ready to go with the new resource management design direction. Other ships aren't, so there's a lot of talk about the component difference between the C1 and the Zeus. That's happened because at one stage they went, we're going to reduce the number of components so it's not confusing, we don't have to find space for them all. The problem is now, if they kind of go down that route, then for smaller ships like this, like the Zeus, like the Connie, that resource management is going to be very basic. Everything's going to be on a chain. If they don't put everything on a chain with the ship that small, it's going to look really over-engineered. It's going to, well, you only did that for gameplay. Whereas if you look at the Hercules, the nodes, you know, the relays form a bit of a lattice. You can lose very important nodes and lose connection to parts of your ship. That seems to be the way they're going. So everything pre the Zeus is going to go back through a component overhaul to change out how many components there are. That's the reason for the difference. It is not, as some people said, that it was just intentionally overpowered to sell ships. For a change. Sam Lowry, good evening, buddy. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Zimfella says, general rule for me is all my ships are flyable, but the Zeus ES could be a contender. Interesting. Why the ES then? Are you preferring the extra security that provides over the C1, or that's an interesting call. Matthew says, they haven't shown where the tractor beam is for the Zeus. You know that the C1 can just drag everything into its cargo bay and is likely going to be a lot more manoeuvrable. Yes, I think they've already said as such that the C1 is going to manoeuvre better. The Zeus is just kind of a pair of engines with some very small wings. Yep, Hercules, Ares, both variants, nothing massively exciting there, unless you are into those ships, but obviously they've been with us for a while, as has the Hercules class. The E1's going to be interesting, I think, because obviously we're not going to get the ship for a while, because of Star Citizen's, design philosophy of we don't bring it in now without its gameplay, and being able to take AI for a flight when you can't stop them from T-posing on seats. We've got a while to wait. Some fella says, I'm just looking for a daily driver with good range and function. Yeah, 100%. That's interesting. Because I'm very much in the same vein of that. I really like my Connie Taurus. Massive fan, because it's got the cargo space that I can have a vehicle in the cargo ramp as well. Especially considering you can obviously put cargo in the section where the Archimedes or the Merlin would be for the Andromeda. So yes, I'm very much a fan. Watching people T-posing on seats at sitcom made me laugh. Yeah, noob, I saw that as well. That was big brain plays by the people at CitizenCon. Victoria says, I think the E1 is going to be like the Phoenix, the luxury tourism oddball, has the best use of interior space. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, especially with like when they did the Phoenix. They made the crew compartment kind of separate, and they tried to make it look a lot more appealing, but of course everyone had to come up in the same ramp. So it'll be interesting if they change that here. Maybe there's a ladder for the crew somewhere that you don't get in the other variants. I don't know. Maybe they don't solve that at all, or want to solve it. And then there's this thing, which, I mean, what on earth are they doing with this thing? I mean, it doesn't look like a Crusader ship for a start. It's basically the Space 747. It's the budget travel, you know, if EasyJet flew stuff, it would be this thing. You know, we're going to see it a lot, especially I think if we go and use, you know, there's the ticket gates at starports where it's like, you know, internet or intergalactic travel here. This is likely to be the ship that we end up getting on or whatever while we're travelling around. It's going to be really interesting to see where they go with it. You know, we're going to end up with a multi-deck monstrosity. I don't know. Says so many people forgot about the thing. Yeah, it's been a long old way, but you know, Zim's got it there. It looks more Mystic Crusader, especially with that style of bridge, the kind of arc bit, and the engines obviously not looking anything like the iconic Crusader angled engines like the other ones have. So clearly there's going to be quite an amount of rework for this, which I'm sure will piss a lot of people off because that's not what they bought. They bought this thing. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they'll turn that a little bit there. The square bit on the wing where the three struts are vertical, there seems to be a bit below that. Maybe they'll turn that into the Crusader specific engines. Who knows? More Hercules, the Mercury Star Runner, which is, you know, the Mercury Star Runner, and I think we're pretty much back around again. And then the Mercury at the moment is the LTI upgrade, War Bond upgrade. So, you know, I don't give people advice in terms of buy this or buy that or whatever, but it's worth noting that if this is what you're after, it is time limited, and it ends tomorrow when things change over. So just bear that in mind. Don't miss out if that's what you want. Hellwinter says, I bet they're really going to revamp the Starliner to fit with the Crusader design Bible. Yeah, and isn't it a super old design in law? Yeah, that might be their get out of jail free card, Hellwinter, that they decide to go back to that and go, well, you know, it's kind of, it's old, it's the old version. Nothing old looks like the stuff that we have now, so, yeah. I love the Space 10, the Inferno, says Daily Noob. Yeah, that thing. It sounds full of Bert as well, which is quite nice. I'm hoping that the Ion gets a little bit more love just to bring it up to the same sort of level. But yeah, you know, I like both of them. But yeah, that gun needs to sound as close to an A10's GAU 38 Avenger cannon as humanly possible, because that thing just sounds incredible. Yeah, so that's where we are at the minute, and then obviously tomorrow, we've got Tumbrel as well, I suppose. I suppose we could talk about Tumbrel. I completely forgot about Tumbrel. The Storm AA. Who in chat has either of these vehicles? Want to tell us about it? What you think? How far you've got? Whether you've enjoyed them? I know that Del Kenobi has had a play with these, so he's quite enjoyed zipping around in, I think, the normal Storm. But yeah, that's been good. I love the Inferno, but the fact I can use lasers so I don't need to pay for ammo. Yes. Yeah, 100%. Matthew says never buy vehicles. Yeah, possible. What did you make of it, Daily? What do you think? You said tested it today at length on stream. What were your thoughts? Feathers says also, I don't buy land vehicles outside the game. Monster AV says it's decent savings if you had a CCU, but the design just seems bad. Quite bugged if you're using sticks for movement. Bugged in what? Did you? Is this you telling me that you crashed a lot? Getting the front components on every side, says AV. It doesn't sound great. But yes, so it was interesting. There was a lot of speculation about the Storm and the Storm AA, or particularly this bit, as to why they would put things in boxes like this as opposed to just doing the missiles like I think this one had, which makes them much more visible. The interesting thing is here, depending on how you wanted to do this, you could actually make those boxes how you reload. So rather than taking the missile and putting the missiles in, you could just completely cycle out those units. But you've got, what, 4, 8, 12, 16, so you've got 32, 40 missiles. Holy... That's a lot of missiles. That's crazy. Howinter Gaming says, I've seen a couple of Let's Plays and the Storm can't fit in a lot of vehicles. Yes, so the footprint for the Storm seems very much the same as the Nova Tonk. Not much smaller than. I think it's shorter. But width-wise, it's not, which is a bit of a shame because, as a couple of people know, within our chat on Discord, link in the description, by the way, if you want to come in and join us with chats. You know, it's not a... it was a bit disappointing that it wasn't something that would fit in the Valkyrie. Because it feels like the Valkyrie could, you know, cement its place over some of the other dropships by actually just, you know, being that dropship that can take the slightly larger type of vehicles. And I'm not saying the Tonk, it doesn't have to take the ballista or the, you know, anything like that, but being able to take the Storm would have been a nice boom for it. Unfortunately, that's not panned out as yet. Danube says they're quite bugged if you're using sticks, so it takes 2 full Storm AA payloads to destroy an M2. Interesting. And it won't move sometimes. Damn. Yeah, that's no good. Double stacked it over 60 size 1 missiles. Holy moly. Yeah, that's not great. But yeah, it's just a shame. I mean, the whole point of a light tank is that it's not just to be faster, it's not just to be recon, it's also because, you know, heavy tanks have their own drawbacks, right? Your main battle tanks, they are incredibly vulnerable in built-up areas because you can do all sorts of things that don't involve destroying them to disable them. You know, and they proved that in conflict with things like dropping Molotov cocktails on top of vents, so the engines would suck in nothing but super hot air. The engines would give out, or it would get sucked into the crew compartment, and the crew would have to bail out because they couldn't breathe the air that was inside the tank. And that's been changed a little bit now, but the point remains that light tanks can move with much faster vehicles through the sensors of densely populated areas. They're not as bogged down, and also they become deployable in a lot more ways. You know, there's a reason that we have Humvees and stuff as well as armoured personnel carriers, and it's not just a cost issue, although that's a big part of it. Avi says, yeah, I don't know why they made it that wide. There isn't a need to standardise the width for the widest vehicle. That's just a poor choice, in my opinion. I think it can get in a Carrack. I'm not sure. Because it doesn't have the height of the Tonk. So, I think it can get in. I'm not 100%. But either way, that is probably why they haven't done it, because the Valkyrie's hatch may be very similar in size to other stuff that they absolutely 100% didn't want this getting into. It can fit in a Connie Phoenix, says Elwinter. Really? What? Like that? Just driving in? Crazy. I know it can't get into the Valk. Needs a big ship to move it. Yeah, I get the whole. I get that you don't. I mean, you don't want this thing rolling out the back of a cutty. That's just ridiculous. But something like a Valkyrie, I think, because the idea is you've got all the troop compartment up front with the drop seats, so they're all in that. That whole vehicle bay space is just that. It's the vehicle bay, and I'd love to see something a little bit more punchy than a Cyclone or a Rover come out of there, but, we'll see. So that's that. Interesting that they went energy on the Storm rather than ballistics. It kind of makes the whole drum thing a little bit pointed. Feather says, will it fit in my arrow? Only if you've got a tow bar. If you've got a tow bar, fine, you can fly it. But otherwise, mate, no, it's not going to fit in the cockpit with you. And then these ones, really looking forward to the days we can get on our wheeled bikes and just zip around. But I think they need to make things a little less flippy, or conversely, they need to make these things so that we can pick them up if they're on their side, if they're on the top, that we can just go up and go, interact with it or move it back into position, even if you don't have a tractor beam rifle or a tractor beam attachment with you. But yes, some really nice bits with the Rangers. Again, I think they're going to be very easy to earn in game very quickly. So, whether you want to buy them or not is entirely up to you. Yeah, and then the Cyclones, there's nothing new to see with those. They are the Cyclones. We've seen them for a long time. Interesting. I don't know if we've got any. Can we CCU to these things? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, go away. That's going to stop doing that. I really do look like the AA. I think that's cool. No war bonds. No, it's. Maybe we'll get those later on. Maybe they're just not going to come, right? But yeah, very cool, and some very cool looking paint schemes as well. I'm sure they've got some great ones in here. And if not, then they're certainly going to have fun putting those up. But you would kind of expect, wouldn't you? We've got a nice planet. We've got a planet with both kind of arid areas and green areas. Why don't we get a snow one? Why don't we get an arid one? Why don't we get a green one? I mean, I suppose you could argue that that's kind of like a weak olive drab, but, come on, CIG, just make it cool. Make us, give us the ability to have these things. Oh, we've got upgrades. We've got upgrades, yay! But they don't have the options. So I can go from the Steve, or I can go from the Pisces. Neither of those things will be happening. Absolutely not. Get the Legionnaire like the Pelicans from Halo, says Matthew. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are, I guess, in IAE. I haven't heard of anything in game, but that's kind of what I was hoping for this year, was maybe a push towards, especially with all the graffiti stuff and the don't buy alien. I was hoping we were going to see a push towards more in-game events and maybe missions that come up, even if you're just doing them on the side for stuff and to get yourself a skin or whatever, an in-game cosmetic. But yeah, something like that would have been cool. But I guess maybe next year, maybe not. Yeah. So that's that. Other than that, we've had a couple of other bits come out last week. whilst we've all been waiting for the crazy ship sale that is IAE, a few things changes have been made to the release tracker for 3.22 coming in Q4 soon. Player hair update is in. Shadow Girl, if you're here, I'm sure you are chuffed to nuts. If not, I'm sure she's looking forward to that very much. So, Feather says, I hope that leak of the Mirai Heavy Fighter was true. That thing looks amazing. We'll see. There's certainly something that looks very much like a tuning fork on the Citizen Con thing, but don't know. And then a few things that have been added to the release view, but are not yet committed. So these things are coming, but we don't know that they haven't been finalised yet. So we have derelict settlements, of which a whole bunch of them have been added. So Bloodshot Ridge and Maker's Point have been added to the Arena Commander as well. So this is Stanton's new derelict settlements and a Stormian settlement on Hurston. So Maker's Point, Bloodshot Ridge are going to be in-game locations as well. So yeah, that's quite cool. And then multi-crew and spawn locations. So this is going to be quite interesting that we are going to be able to, for the first time, bring multi-crew into Arena Commander, which hopefully will start down the road of making multi-crew ships, even before all of the implementations like armor and resource management start to help them feel a little bit more powerful in the verse, because the data that they can take from this will then feed back into their internal improvements and that sort of stuff. And we hope that this will start making multi-crew feel as potent as it needs to feel to make it a viable alternative to why would I just stick 12 people on a ship when I can take 12 ships. Hopefully we'll have an answer for this. I apologise profusely. I am all over the place at the moment. Sorry about that. Yes, so that's where we are. And then there was Star Citizen Live. An hour's worth of video on Friday, which answered a lot of questions from the interactions and the flight side of the game. If you have not seen it, I would 100% recommend you to go and see it as soon as you can. Lots of questions answered. Maybe we'll flick to just a couple here in a second, and we'll see what I can find. Let's have a look. So some of this is going to be well worth a watch. Excuse for the sudden blast of sound in no time at all. But you guys let me know what it is that you want to see in terms of questions and stuff. Because down here in the description, we have all sorts of questions. Radar and ping mechanics. What was really interesting to see was they said something about the personal scanning and wall hacks. So let's take a quick look at that now.
Some people are already calling the new radar and ping mechanics wall hacks. Can you tell, because you can tell all the, or can you tell us all of the upsides, the downsides, and the possible ways for people to remain undetected so that people would stop calling it that?
Where to start? So definitely a concern internally too, right? So I would say visually very strong at the moment. Like if you ping someone, as you saw in the video, you see them and almost nothing else because it's such a strong visual. So definitely that needs tuning. There's a lot of work left to do on that. There's the time it takes to charge up the ping. There's whether you should be able to see through all types of occlusion. Can you have thicker walls, stuff like that to make encounters different. Then we're given tons of parameters for designers to tweak, like pierceability, range, signal noise ratio. You know, is my radar or my scanner better than your anti-scanner, whatever you want to call it? I think those are the kind of things we can do on the technical side, the engineering side to do it. But then at the end of the day, you know, it's probably more Zach's side to sort of say like how will design use those tools to.
Yeah. So obviously we don't want to make it busted. That was a very strong version that we showed off. We said gameplay balancing in progress, I believe. But it's the case of like, you know, how emissions tie into this, right? So for example, we have the idea of decoys and jammers potentially on a suit. Those could be, you know, components inside suits that would essentially make your emissions much lower, maybe practically invisible. That's obviously going to be down to gameplay balance. And if you're in like a heavy armor, maybe you have heavy emissions. But there's always like you know, there's a forward and backward with this, right? So if you're light and you're invisible, and you scan, for example, a heavy, you should be able to see him in theory. But if there's a heavy, for example, and he scans you, and you're in more of a suit with a much lower emission, or you're in a state with much lower emissions, you potentially might not come up. So there's so many things we can do to balance it, and we essentially showed it at its strongest, right? Yeah. Because when we communicate something out like that, we always want, you know, people to see how is that in its, like, you know, almost maybe potentially your strongest state and things like that. So I mean, gameplay balance, all of that is in flux, it's tweakable, it's changeable. So obviously, you know, we don't want an experience to be, you know, PvP to be trivialized by anything like, you know, radar becoming a crux essentially, right? We're completely aware of that, and obviously, you know, we're conscious of that. We play the game ourselves, and we wouldn't want that happening to players.
I think it's very. First of all, I think it should go without saying, but you know, we always get new people every week, every month, every year. So it bears repeating that nothing you've ever seen
is in its final form. That's what he's going to go on to say, and I don't think that's any surprise to anyone, right? So let's cut back across to this. Yeah, so interesting. There's a couple of bits that I picked up on in there. One is that when you ping, you are going to get seen, which is interesting because there's every chance you could use that as a form of trap. So you could have someone ping, but have you and your squad mates forward of them closer to the enemy, so they run at him thinking that's where he is, and walk right into your ambush. So that might be quite good fun to do. Or they'll just ping and see you anyway. What was really interesting is he talked about armor components. Which, as I said it, my brain went, how much more have they got to develop on this game? And the answer to that, quite clearly, is a metric crap ton. That's going to be very interesting. That they've kind of, you know, we've now got components into armor. I think it was unsurprising that different types of armor were going to reduce certain emissions and all that sort of stuff. So that's no big shock. But, you know, the key takeaway is they showed it at its very strongest because they can dial it back from them. They showed it at its strongest because it communicates what they're able to do and what the system is capable of. And then, based on their own concerns, on the concerns of the community, they then walk that backward and go, okay, well, it can do that, but we don't want all of that. So still questions. It's going to be interesting. So Feathers, yes and no. Feathers says, is armor built into Maelstrom? So what we know at the moment is ship parts. The physical state of a ship is built into Maelstrom. But rather than me answer this, it is actually answered during the stream. So the whole, what's the difference between Maelstrom and da-da-da-da-da. So allow me to let Jared answer that question for you.
And Maelstrom. Well, physicalized damage. The physicalized damage system is like the overarching umbrella. That is everything that determines that is involved in a systemic, physics-based damage and destruction system of your ship. Ship, vehicle, outpost, whatever. Maelstrom is the destruction part. It's how those items break apart into physically based pieces, fly all over the place. Armor is the value of the value of the materials. Whether it's everything has to have an assigned material. Is this part steel? Is this part concrete? Is this part sand? Whatnot? And then the third part that's not mentioned in there is piercing and stuff. Is ammunition and weapons and stuff being able to pierce through those things to damage subsequent layers and stuff. All those things and one or two more things that are escaping me right now all make up what's called the physicalized damage system. And we're actually...
Okay, so not quite the answer I thought he gave when I first listened to it, but my understanding at the moment is that ship parts form part of Maelstrom. The armor isn't, because armor's lootable. So they're going to have the damage and wear and tear layers on it. There's no indication at the moment from what I've seen, although I'm sure chat will set me right if I'm wrong, that will... I've just killed some ads. Sorry, I wanted to put ads up and I was like, nope. That it will go into Maelstrom in that it can be broken apart and stuff. So, yes, no clue yet. I'm sure there'll be some light interaction, so maybe you'll be able to see, hits, and if you take a particularly large hit that you survive, maybe there's evidence of that, but there's no indication at the moment that gets worked into Maelstrom in terms of coming apart and being blown like that. Unless anyone's heard any differently, but I think that's kind of where it is at the moment. Praise be to our Lord and Saviour, Jared, says Matthew. Yeah, 100%. Good answer. The other thing that he asked, or answered rather, that I think it's worth looking at is they talk about sliding. And I'm just trying to see it. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. I can't see it. Here we go.
Super important to me, so I can go on a long time. And then the other part of that was the inertialization. So that inertialized blending is something that I'm also really keen on, and we're definitely going to be exploring, because I think it will allow us to blend between a situation without traditional transition animations, and we can use the inertialization as ways to tweak the timings, like Zach was talking about. Like, do we punish you because you just did 3 slides in a row and your stamina is your heart is mega pounding? It's going to take it'll be like, it's about me standing up, like old man standing up, instead of Zach, young man, he'll be up jumping on your desk before I even got out of the seat, right? So
yeah, welcome, Single Track. Good to see you. Kiss my W, whatever that means. Good to see you. Thanks for the heads up. Yeah, so struggling through with a bit of a cold at the minute. Might end up cutting things short because it's not getting any better, put it that way. I'm now leaking from various places, which is no good fun at all. Yeah. So, long story short, the interesting bit from that is you can't shoot whilst you're sliding. There's going to be an interrupt period. So, yes, sliding is very much at the moment planned to be a mechanic where it's to get you into cover, not as a combat thing like you get with the arena game that begins with an A that I'm completely forgetting, or Modern Warfare, or any of those monstrosities. So yes, it's good news that they've gone that way with it, I think. Unfortunately, bad news for those that are waiting to see night vision in the game. You are going to be waiting a while longer. They are thinking about it. From what they said, it didn't even sound like they're 100% convinced they're going to put it in the game, which is daft. I think I know why. But it looks like they're not. You know what Chris Roberts is like. You know what CIG are like. They like to do things properly. So they've got rooms that are filling up. They're measuring the flammability of materials. They know what oxygen content's in there. They know what smoke content's in there. All that sort of stuff. Night vision works by amplifying ambient light. So if you are in absolute no visibility, no ambient light at all, night vision still struggles, right? It's no better than just taking the night vision goggles off. So there are other low light devices that you can use. So you can use something called FLIR, which is infrared basically. You can use infrared imaging that you basically use an infrared spotlight. So you provide your own light in the non-visible spectrum. So if you're in the dark waiting for people and you've all turned your torches up and you're waiting for them, you can't see it, obviously, because it's infrared, but they can see you. They can use thermal, they can use all sorts of stuff. So yes, it'll be interesting because of course, at the moment, what you're seeing with a lot of stuff is it's just a filter, it's just an overlay, right? And there's I forget what it is, but they've actually added support for it now. It's a graphical thing where you basically just add it to your game. It sits over the top and it adds like a night vision overlay outside of the game. It's a third party thing. Someone's going to tell me the name of it in a second in chat. But something does exist, and CIG know it exists and they have no problem with it. But yeah. Arcade Alchemist says thermal vision, but spectral PIM overlay would be better than thermal or IR, like Ping getting a wireframe sonar overlay. Reshade, thank you, Daily. Appreciate that, mate. So it's reshade is the thing. But yes, there's a whole bunch of stuff they can do. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like it's coming yet. I'm not going to subject you to 3 minutes of them saying that. Let's have a look through armor. Really interesting point on armor. Let's have a quick look.
When armor is implemented, is there an intent for armor to prevent all damage below a certain threshold, alpha damage reduction, or will it serve more like a % reduction or even something else?
So we don't have the armor system yet, but the long-term design or direction that we got is that if you basically come with a ship with anti-fighter weapons against a large ship and you shoot at it with like anti-fighter weapons, the big ships won't care. It's similar like when you take a pistol and tank and shoot against a tank or something like that. The tank doesn't care, right? So we'll have similar situations there. So what exactly these numbers are, whether they're going to be, if there's going to be a threshold or if it's just calculated based on the physical properties, I can't answer at the moment because we're still waiting for the system. We don't even have any idea yet how exactly to tune it. This will come up all when we have the first implementation from the physics guys, and then we can look into that.
So that's interesting. Small ship. Small ship weapons won't bother big ships. which is kind of what you would expect. This is a throwback to, this is not something from modern day navies, because modern day navies don't work on a principle of armor. It's too heavy, and actually weight at sea works against you in torpedoes. The heavier a ship is, the easier it is for a torpedo to break the ship's back, because you use the ship's own weight against itself. So heavier ships are damaged more by torpedoes. That's not entirely true. Heavier ships are more risk of having their back broken by torpedoes, whereas smaller ships just get blown apart by torpedoes. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So yes, interesting between the two. Yes, Shinobi says Reshade does not break terms of service. Entirely correct. They've actually added support for Reshade, so that's that. Arcade Alchemist says LiDAR, yeah, that's light detection and ranging, I think, if I remember correctly. So yeah, light detection and ranging, but yes, it's that sort of stuff. Yogi had the look of a man with a lot of things on his mind. Yes, I get the feeling Yogi is a very, very busy individual. But it's really interesting that he talks about the idea of being able to fire a pistol against a tank, and it just doing absolutely nothing, which is interesting for things like tanks. Because even if you can maybe you can wear the shields down, but against the armor, which is what he was talking about, no dice. Which will be interesting. Maybe you can target little bits. Maybe you can get like shield emitters and stuff. But it doesn't sound like you're going through the armor at all. Zimfella says, got a 5 a.m. start. Good night, folks. Good night, buddy. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Macho, good to see you, my friend. Long time no see. Welcome back. We've just had a look through some IAE stuff, Macho, and we're now having a look at some of the stuff that was in Star Citizen Live last week. Or this week rather, because there's some pretty interesting bits and pieces in here. Also, interesting comments on Hover and VTOL. Let's have a look.
Model. How long is an average ship expected to be able to hover in place before the thrusters overheat versus ships with dedicated VTOL engines? Speaking of wind.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I'm not gonna say how long. The VTOL engines will be more efficient than that, because a good chunk of the main thrust is being used to hover. So VTOL capable ships will be able to hover longer before the engines overheat. But in general, the engines of all ships will not overheat fast. Like, you will always have enough time to, land. Otherwise, it would be pretty frustrating.
Will we see more co-pilot interactions that will assist the pilot?
It depends what co-pilot actions are. If you think about, like, one person takes the stick.
We'll just pause that there for a second. But yes, so they've said, if you remember in the atmospheric flight model, that ships aren't just going to be hanging midair, which, thank God for that. There's nothing worse than coming out of your hangar and just seeing a caterpillar hanging in midair nose down, which just does not make any sense whatsoever. Now, when you come out of, or when you're in atmospheric flight, basically your ship has a limited time before the VTOL thrusters overheat, and as you've heard there, thankfully those of us with dedicated VTOL thrusters, things like the Hercules that can put its wing mounts down, the Connie that opens up all the vents on it, all that sort of stuff is going to have a lot better hope of hovering than things like the Sabre, or the Lightning, or the Arrow, or the Gladius. So much better in that mode. So that's good news. How does the hover work in PlanetSide, Matthew? PlanetSide 2. It has been so long since I've played that game, but I'm kind of really tempted to go back because it was a lot of fun. Sangroper, good to see you, my friend. Long time no see. Yeah, dude, here from 9 till 11, so we've been streaming about an hour. I'm here from 9 to 11 every Sunday, so you are very welcome in, my friend, of course. But really good to see you. Thank you very much for popping in. Okay, Alchemist says the ship should have buoyancy in atmosphere like water, so the VTOL on ship should make it hard to flip larger ships. But anything with wings can do all the aerobatics. Yeah, so he did say something about this as well, and I'll let him explain this in his own words if I can find the bit about it. But it basically, he says, yeah, here we go. How are ships without wings or large VTOL engines expected to handle them atmosphere? Let's have a look.
How are ships without wings or large VTOL engines, such as the MSR, expected to handle an atmosphere, if at all?
Oh, you mean the ships that have the aerodynamic profile of a brick?
Yeah.
They will still fly. I mean, we haven't completely discussed how well they will fly, but similar to the current aerodynamics model, like it would be unfair to lock out complete ships out of that experience and basically make it super, super realistic. It would also be very punishing if somebody buys an Aurora. I mean, Aurora is like the shape of a brick, right? So it doesn't have any lift at all. But also those they will fly. Not sure if we, for example, how we're going to tune it. I mean, theoretically we could give them a higher stall speed so that people need to fly faster for prolonged periods of time to keep their altitude or so. But I don't know yet. I mean, if a ship is sufficiently fast, it will always fly. But ultimately, also here it counts that the play experience is important, even if you have an aerodynamic ship. But like ships with like proper wings, that would probably just be a little bit better. Not that much better though.
I need those little fans that.
And that's a really interesting point, is the ship experience means that they're not going to have things like the Aurora just drop out of the sky because they have all the aerodynamics of a post office. You know, and I get that. I do understand that. But, you know, like you say, having ships in atmosphere behave better makes sense, especially when you've got wings. You look at something like the Hercules, clearly that is going to handle much better in atmosphere than a Caterpillar. But then the balance becomes, okay, well, what drawback should the Hercules have? What should the Caterpillar excel at than that doesn't? Maybe it becomes, bizarrely, more maneuverable in space because you've got a longer body. You can put thrusters right at the front on the nose, and of course when you fire that thruster, it's going to end up with a much quicker turn than a Hercules would, because aerodynamics means squat all in space. So yeah, it will be interesting. Let's just transition back across. Booted up PS2 yesterday was okay, said Arcade Alchemist. I wouldn't go back, but basically, so imagine the Cussy Black where it starts as a VTOL and then moving forward, it tilts its engines to move in the forward direction. But to hover, you're basically constantly pressing up, tilting forward. The same would happen with helicopters. Yeah, so they have the Ospreys in armour, and they're very much the same thing, that you've got to bring the engines back by degrees into the upright position. So they don't just go from horizontal to vertical. You'll actually see them, they'll tilt into that sort of place, and at all times kind of the forward thrust is reducing and the engines are working harder to hold the aircraft up in the air. What I can tell you categorically, even though I'm not a pilot myself, obviously on frigates, destroyers, and when I was on carriers, we flew extensively with a wide range of aircraft, everything from Pumas, Sea Kings, Lynxes to the Merlin. We even did some flying practice for the Apaches so they could do their deck landing practice before they went down to Libya and did their operations off the Libyan coast. So the hover is the most dangerous time for a helo because the engines are working the hardest to keep it in the air. And what you will see with... I don't think American helos do this when they approach, but for British helos, what you'll see is the ship will be moving through the water, okay, and the helo, instead of coming directly up behind it, will come up to the side, and it will see how the ship's moving. It will pan across onto the deck and then lower down. in effect, what it's doing is it's leaving itself an out, because as it's approaching and slowing down, and you obviously see the rotor blades and the aircraft kind of tilt backwards, so it's slowing, it's almost doing a very slight flare as it comes in. The engines are working harder and harder and harder as the airspeed reduces. And by being down the side, what it can do is, as it comes in not high, but it comes in higher than the level of the ship. Because if it loses an engine, what it can do is dip the nose, transfer into forward flight as quickly as it can, just as Matthew is describing in chat, to try and save itself. And then what it will do is it will come in and do what they call a running emergency landing, which is it will come in at the speed where the engine can handle it. It will come right at the back of the ship. They will flare and they'll go. They'll point vertical, and of course the engine works in overdrive then to effectively slow. They slow very quickly in a very short space of time. The engine will effectively is likely to burn itself out, and then they'll just flop onto the deck. Dangerous maneuver. Obviously, in that position, the pilot loses all visibility of the ship. Yep. But the idea is that they then slam down on the back end of the ship and at least don't end up in the water, because that's the worst place for the pilot to end up. So that's what they're talking about here, is that being in the hover is the most dangerous part, because you're just suspended, and they ain't designed to do that. So hopefully a little bit of my naval background is helping there and building up a picture for you guys that this is not just game for game reasons. They are drawing this stuff, whether they mean to or not, from the real world. So yeah, cool. Superman can fly, and he has the aerodynamic profile of a brick. More power, says Sangroper. Yeah, I mean, just give jetpacks when. Some larger ships won't be able to go into atmosphere. I hope they keep that. Yes, 100%. Like the Reclaimer, I keep going back to this with the flight model. Noob, I'd be really interested in fact, everyone in chat. But, you know, Noob, I know you do a lot of low-level flying and stuff. There's no, at the moment for me, there's only one ship that I ever feel any satisfaction in landing. And that's the Reclaimer in Atmo. Because it's just so big that I'm impressed. And it handles like such a pig that I'm just impressed that I didn't slam into the planet's surface and die a horrible fiery death. You know, that coming down, just constantly putting vertical thrust on, to just stop you accelerating past the point of recovery. I want everything to feel rewarding to land. Not that it's really hard, but just that you know that if you're not concentrating, you can really screw it up. And you get that feeling in armor all the time. And anyone who's had any practice of flying jets in armor can land regularly, right? You only muck it up when you're not paying attention. I'm hoping that this game does the same thing. I'm not entirely sure I'm allowed to say that out loud, but we'll go for it anyway. Up your shaft. Welcome, buddy. I know for a fact with a name like that, I haven't seen you in stream before, but good to have you, friend. Thank you for joining the stream. We are a little way through. I'm really ill, I'm nasally, I'm dribbling and all sorts of stuff, so apologies if I'm not here much longer, but I'm not feeling great. But we're just talking about some of the stuff that came up in Star Citizen Live, because we've had a look at IAE. Unsurprisingly, not a lot of big surprises in there either, you know, other than the Sulan and the fact that your CCUs will be on for a day and then they won't reoccur. The CCUs that we'll get again at the end of show will be different ones, and that's been confirmed by CIG. But yeah. Matthew says, I love landing in impossible spots. AV says, the current flight model does seem rather simple and not really a challenge. Admittedly, I don't think SC needs full DCS, but it just seems too simple. Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? And I think Armour does a good job of this, in that you can set flaps, you set your thrust level, and you need to know roughly what speed to land at, because of course on jets you will land on that. But it's fairly simple. If you're in the simple flight mode, it's doable. You pull the gear up, you put the gear down, just as we do now. You set flaps, which we obviously don't need to do. You just need to know what speed to hit the ground at. But if you're too slow, you'll you'll obviously get a lot more vertical velocity than you'd otherwise intended. If you're too fast, you'll overshoot the runway. If you descend too quickly, you will you will damage your landing gear quite considerably, and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that they can do, and they probably will add it. But yeah, there's that. Feather says jetpacks would be huge. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get jetpacks, but it would be fun if we did. Matthew says, honestly, I kind of hate the current flight model. Large ships are super drifty. Yes, just like they are in real life. When you talk about naval ships, they drift an awful lot. Some of the large, some of the really, really large tanker can have turning circles of over 5 nautical miles. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Shush, shut up. God damn it. But yes, some of the significantly large oil tankers have turning circles of over 5 miles, which is just mental. So I'm just gonna pop this over here very quickly, so you can see it, and then I'm going to change it over so you can see the proper screen. So this thing is just incredibly big. To let you know how big the scale is on this thing, is that you would ride a bike from one end of it to the other. This thing will have obviously a ton. This is probably this is the Yara Viking, tonnage of probably somewhere around 300,000 tons. Just unbelievable, unbelievably large and incredibly complex pieces of equipment. And yeah, like I said, turning circles of over 5 miles. So the drift thing, that's kind of what we would expect, I guess. That's no big surprise. And I think the big ships do need that as well. Up Your Shaft says, need news on Vulcan and Perseus. New ready-to-fly ships are shiny things to distract. Yeah, we had a chat on the Vulcan. So anyone that knows me knows that the Perseus is my baby. I absolutely love it. Got one sat in the hangar ready to go. I also have a Vulcan step-off point on one of my CCU chains because I want to give that a go when that comes out. It looks really, really good. But yes, we'll see. Feathers says, I was just going to say large ships are very drifty in real life. Yeah, 100%. Again, you'll find that commercial ships, one of the big differences, commercial ships are very long, they're very wide, because that contributes to their stability. Why does that matter when we're talking about space and not water? Because commercial ships are built for economic engines. Yeah, so being long as they are like that, they're very good at staying on course with minimal rudder input. Minimal rudder input means the engines are not affected very minimally. So you're not burning fuel getting back up to speed. You're just staying at one constant speed. The engine's in a nice economical state. You save money. You increase the money on your cargo. Sounds like a commercial ship, right? Whereas warships, completely the opposite. Long, thin, don't necessarily handle particularly well in all weathers. They can be a bit more struggle to put on course, but will turn on a dime comparatively. Like that thing, 5 miles, most warships in the British Navy, apart from the new supercarriers, will turn 180 degrees inside of 800 yards. So, significant difference between the two. Perseus is the GOAT, says Daily Noob, at 100%. So yeah, Vulcan, we don't know. Perseus, what was really interesting was they were talking about weapons having different effects depending on the gun and the ship that they're going through, which bodes really well for the Hammerhead, potentially upranging its size 4s to make it again a threat to fighters as opposed to something that really struggles to deal with them despite being an anti-fighter subcap. Interesting stuff. Daily News says the Reclaimer is a fun ship to fly. We did a group race around the icebreaker upside down for an org event a few months back. It was stupid funny, somewhat broken that it can do it, to be honest. Yes, 100%. Yeah, I remember just you couldn't transition from VTOL to forward flight in a Reclaimer the last time I tried to take one off of a planet because you just dropped out of the sky. So sounds like they've definitely changed that. And I do remember, I think, when you were doing your races around the snake pits, you were doing that in a Reclaimer, and that was incredibly fun to watch. For those that haven't seen it, you can head over to Daily Noob's channel. Onto his Twitch channel, and see his low flying. He's really good helping out new starters. So if you're new starting, if anyone else you know is looking to get in and they want to do that with a superstar streamer like Daily, then head over to the channel and have a look. He'll be more than happy to have you. And the great news is that he and his viewers, just like us, are a bunch of degenerates. So your humour will be more than welcome. Just don't do anything that, breaks his time of service, because otherwise we'll break your legs. Okie dokie. Yeah, everything in the mass gets thrown to the floor. Yeah, no, that wouldn't be the first thing. Feather says that thunder cloud for the Perseus looks sick. It absolutely does. It looks very much like a World War II German Raider paint scheme that they had. And yes, 100%. I've got it for my Perseus. And when the Perseus comes out, there will be a mass Perseus gathering. We'll do a stream for it. We'll get everyone together. If you don't have a Perseus, come gun one of ours, and we'll go and turn a server into an absolute terror fest for a couple of hours. I can't think of anything better than to do with it than kill everything else that isn't a Perseus. So yeah, Daily Noob's got that paint as well. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Daily, I think we might have been sorted by the same person. I think Edison sorted you out as well, didn't he? So yeah, really good news. Edison, the dodgy paint dealer down the pub, the dude that just pulls up his jacket, it's like, hey, you want some Thundercloud paint? Okie dokie. Let's see if there's a final one here then, because my throat is finally giving up the ghost. I don't know if you can hear it. Sounds like my balls are dropping. That's not what's happening. But let's see if we can find. Here we go. With new changes to the atmospheric flight system, will some ships land like airplanes? Let's have a look.
The atmospheric flight system, will some ships like the M50 or the Origin series, I guess I mean the 100, the M50 or the Origin 100 series land like airplanes instead of with VTOL?
Oh, I really would like to have that, but I don't see that in the near future. You mean because these actually have wheels, right,
Yes.
on the landing gears? Yeah, I don't even know if they're actually if they're moving wheels. I don't know. I mean, I don't see this right now. Like all of our landing pads are like pads where you vertically go down. I haven't seen any runways. Like I would love runways, but I don't see that in the near future. But with the aerodynamic system or with the control surface mode, you can actually glide in there like you would actually land like that. So yeah, I guess we'll have to discuss it at some point.
Just do it. Just do it.
Whoa, Jesus, Jared!
Just do it. Just make them land like airplanes.
Okay, I'll talk to some people. I'll create a Spectrum thread about this, and this will get somebody's attention.
Thanks, Kalian. It's just. It's because I'm snotting everywhere and being generally unwell and sounding. I thought, you know what? I'll save them from it. And then I completely forget that I've done it. Because I'm an idiot. Sorry about that. Oh, dear Jazro. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the stream. Don't know how long you've been here, but yes. Yeah, his ball dropped so low, I just couldn't hear it, said Matthew. Yeah, so, oops. Going to qualify the Perseus around some racetracks when it comes out, or I'll do my best. I mean, the great thing is that Perseus is going to win every race it's in because you just nuke everything around it with your torps and your turrets, and you're the only ship left in the race basically from the moment you cross the start line. So, insta win. I think you'll be fine. Shinobi says, it has to happen at least once. It really does, mate. It really does. But that's where we are. I don't know what content I'm going to do for the rest of IAE because I knew from a very long time ago, obviously, that I wouldn't be here for the start of it since they started advertising the dates. So I knew I wasn't going to be here, but we might look at putting something out next week and having a look. I'm also putting a video together, which is every feature and date that was mentioned at CitizenCon in one easy place to handle for you guys. So that will be around soon as well if you want it. Yeah, that'll be good fun to see. And then more content coming. For the time being, I will be here and not across in the info runners stuff. I'll still be doing the professionals, but I'm not going to be presenting it over there as much for the time being. So you're more than welcome to come find me here. There is down in the description a link to the Discord. You are more than welcome to come in. You are, welcome to pop in on any chat that's going on. Just please give it a couple of seconds at first. Just make sure that you read the room a little bit and don't come barging in and screaming the place down. But yes, you're more than welcome to come in, chat whenever you see us in there. Just let me know that you're in. Either message me, let me know on here, wherever it is, because you won't be able to see anything when you first get in because you won't have the roles, and I can't figure out the damn bot to do it automatically. So you are more than welcome to join that way. I'm probably going to cut it short by half an hour because I'm I'm up against it here, fellas. You can see I'm starting to leak from the eyes now and all sorts. So not great. But I will be back as normal, or as soon as possible, next Sunday. So looking forward to seeing you all then. Yeah, and I hope I may well put a couple of shorts or bits and pieces out during the rest of IAE. If a ship comes out, or there is a day that stops, and it is something really quite different, then expect me to go live with next to no notice. I'll put the notifications out, but if you want that, obviously make sure you're subscribed and belled and all that good stuff, and you'll see that happen. But yes, thank you very much for bearing with me and my muting and my not being able to get on Star Citizen and everything else that has gone wrong today. I will do my best to fix it over the coming days and bring you guys the content that you deserve over the coming weeks and stuff. But I've had some really good chats with Daily Noob. I've had some really good thoughts while I've been away about what I want to do here. So expect more content, more regularly, videos, the wax. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to you all soon. And then all that's left then is the customary outro. He's also had some horrible chats. Not at all, Matthew. Do enjoy the chats. Massively enjoy the chats with all of you. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.